Hi everyone. Today we're going to be replacing the throttle body on a 2005 Ford Expedition. About a year ago I started getting engine codes. I would get an engine code and then I would lose all power. The engine would reduce to just below idle and you wouldn't be able to throttle back up. You'd press on the gas pedal and nothing would happen. So when this happened, it was very intermittent. I'd turn the engine off, turn it back on, it'd run fine. When you look up the codes, which I think at the time was the P2107 throttle actuator control mod processor and the P2110 throttle actuator control system force limit RPM. I think I might have had different codes before that even, but what I found looking online is, yeah, you need to get the throttle body replaced. Sometimes you can replace just the motor, but I just went ahead and did the full replacement. I should have just replaced it right when it happened, but I'm cheap and I like to take risks. It only happened about 3 times in a period of a year, and then this week it did it several times. Yesterday morning I tried to start it 3 times in a row. It wouldn't do anything except hunt for idle. So that's when I knew, well, that motor or something, that throttle body's done. So it was time to replace. First order of business is we have to remove this air box. So you got to take out air filter and unhook, what do we have here? I think we have vacuum tubes for the brake booster, and I think this is part of the EGR over here. Probably should get it in frame. Anyway, I will fast forward through all that and we'll get down to the throttle body. Alright, to start with, you remove the air filter, and then we have three connections on top. So we have an electrical connection, a vacuum hose for the brake booster, and then an I think this is a vacuum as well. I think this is part of the EGR. I don't remember. Anyway, we'll get this removed. It has four of these tower studs, I guess, but anyway, you got to use a box end or a open end wrench to get these off. Alright, so I should explain how these plugs work as well. So again, I think this is for the EGR system. It has a green, I think that's green, I'm colorblind.
Yeah, that's green.
It has a green tab right here that you just hold down. It'll spring back up, so you just hold down and then you just pull it off. Now with all of these bolts removed, it's fairly simple. You do have a overflow tube to the reservoir that it just sits in there. So this all just pulls off and pulls straight up, and you can start removing this to get to the throttle body. So these are just 10mm bolts right here. They are not very tight at all. I'll look up the torque spec when I put it all together. Just keep in mind, I'll say this again when I put the new one on, but keep in mind this is a plastic intake manifold. You can and probably will crack this manifold if you don't adhere to the torque spec. So this connection is a little different than the other ones. So this one slides, let's see if I can get my hand out of the way. This one slides straight up. So you see that? It just slides straight up first, and then you can pull it out. Maybe. There you go. So all the bolts are removed, and I'm just going to move it out of the way to do this plug right here, which is another one of those slide back tabs, and then you press on it. And I'm also slipping off the... Here, let me go to this side. So, slide back the red tab, press the black tab. It should, theoretically, can't do it with one hand. Slide off. Yeah, can't do it with one hand. Alright, so obviously this is the old throttle body. Pretty dirty inside. I think these Fords are known for kind of a bad PCV system. They consume oil, but it's not because of bad rings. I think it's because of the PCV system. I also forgot to mention you want to clean that surface off, so it has a reusable O-ring in that intake manifold there. So I'm just going to clean that off, make sure that the O-ring is not damaged. I don't think it is. And yeah, we'll just go from there. So I cleaned off the surface, the O-ring looks good, everything's fine. It looks like the motor is not going to interfere with the I can't get it to focus ever. There we go. It looks like that new motor on the throttle body is not going to interfere with the PCV system. So yeah, we're just going to torque it down to spec. According to my information, those throttle body bolts are either 8 foot-pounds or 96 inch-pound of torque on those. So whichever torque wrench you're going to use, that's what you're going to do. I made this connection. I had to end up putting that electrical connection, I assume for the drive motor for the throttle body, on before installing the throttle body. It's just really pinched in there. And then, yeah, let's just move on to the next. We're gonna put this plug on now, and then we're just gonna put the airbox on. My camera person bailed on me, so I'm not gonna be able to show you how I would put this box on, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It only fits on one way. That connection goes on the throttle body, and then there's two plastic pedestals, I guess you'd call them, that fit in those two holes, and the inlet tube fits in the fender. So all of the airbox bolts, I tightened them down to officially not very tight. Make sure that vacuum line's plugged in, and then we'll put this hose up in the bracket right here. Put this hose back on. So you saw that snap, you just have to push it on, you don't have to do anything else. Before I put the airbox on, I put that electrical connector on the throttle body. And then that's all for that side. And we'll go to this side. One vacuum tube to the brake booster here. And then, let's see here, where's our connector at? Oh, that's embarrassing. Where'd it go? So in that last clip I left off and I couldn't find the electrical connection. Well, that's because I had put this airbox on over the top of it. So I guess when you're putting this airbox on, make sure all your wires are out of the way. Got the wiring harness out of the way, bolts are back in. Now to finish up, I left everything, all the hoses on that side are still in. So again, your vacuum hose to the brake booster, and then that pesky electrical connector. Pull out the red pin a little bit, slide it over, and then push the red in. The first reprogramming sequence I'm going to try, and hopefully this is the one that works, is disconnecting the negative battery terminal. And then what that video suggests is using a jumper from the disconnected battery cable connector, running a jumper from that to the positive post and connector on the battery that you left connected. So you run a jumper and that will get rid of the residual power and the capacitors in the computer, supposedly. I will show how I do that, but essentially you have to make sure you disconnect the post, the battery wire from the post, otherwise you're going to short out your system. So for the reprogramming sequence, I'm going to be using a 5/16. Your mileage may vary. These are still the stock post connectors. They can be totally something different, so just make sure you size it to what you need. So we're going to remove the negative terminal. Take out that aftermarket wire I had for the fog lights, and then we're going to run this jumper for about a minute according to the video I watched. To me it would seem like the capacitors would discharge instantaneously, but That's what they're saying, is leave this on there for about a minute. So we're gonna put it just on the battery wire connector, make sure it's out of the way, and then we'll find kind of a good place to put it on that positive post. I'll just go ahead and hold it for a minute, but this sequence should be pretty simple. The video I watched said there would be some sparks. I didn't see any sparks. So just to reiterate, for the negative side, I'm not putting it on the battery post, I'm putting it on the battery cable. Positive side wasn't disconnected, so we're just putting it on that post there. Once that's complete, go ahead and remove the wire. And then put the battery post back on. I had to think about it if I left the ignition keys in or not. I didn't. If I was being a good person, I would have cleaned up these battery posts. But that didn't happen. They look okay. There's no buildup on them. So don't make these super tight or you'll break the battery post. Then always make sure you wiggle them afterwards, because I just did that and it was still loose. So we gotta go a little tighter. Okay, that one's fine. This one's fine. At this point, I'm going to cut the video short and have a part 2. I'll try to embed the link in here. But what ended up happening is the intermittent idle issues came back, and I had to order a new Motorcraft throttle position sensor. So part 2 will have the installation of that sensor in the new throttle body and the recalibration of the throttle body.